Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Don Ma. Here are today's top stories. Former special counsel Jack Smith is being investigated for potentially committing illegal political activity related to the 2024 election. How have the recent tariffs affected U.S. businesses, consumers, and the overall economy? We discussed this with a panel of experts. Can music help the injured brain to heal? Brendan Fallon joins us from NTD's Vital Signs to share insights into how music affects the brain and how it could play a role in treating dementia.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for being here with us. Jack Smith, the former special counsel who investigated then-candidate Donald Trump before his re-election, is now being investigated. The House of Special Counsel, an independent federal body, confirmed the investigation on Saturday. It's looking into potential illegal political activity under the Hatch Act, a U.S. law banning certain officials from political activity. This follows a request from Senator Tom Cotton, who asked the office to investigate Smith, alleging that Smith used the DOJ to influence the election in favor of then-President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Smith was assigned to investigate Trump by then-Attorney General Merrick Garland under the Biden administration. Major trade deals and successful peace negotiations. It was another whirlwind week for the Trump administration. NTD's Daniel Monahan has your weekly recap.
President Trump was in Scotland this week. While there, he negotiated a landmark trade deal with the European Union, securing hundreds of billions of dollars in new U.S. investment and more.
It's a good deal for everybody, I believe. And I think you were saying this is probably the biggest deal ever reached in any capacity, trade or beyond trade.
It is. It's a huge deal. It will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic.
President Trump also managed to play a role in brokering peace between Cambodia and Thailand.
I called the prime ministers of each, and I said, we're not going to make a trade deal unless you settle the war. A lot of people are killed, you know that.
The two countries announced an immediate and unconditional ceasefire soon after. Similar efforts by the Trump administration have brokered peace between Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and India and Pakistan.
It's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
The president opened his new 18-hole golf course while in Scotland, even making time to play a quick round. Trump later returned home from his trip to Scotland with his grandkids in tow. The Trump administration announced multiple new trade deals this week with South Korea, Cambodia, Thailand, and Pakistan. Meanwhile, the president also imposed a 50% tariff on Brazil and some copper imports. Second quarter GDP growth rate results came in at 3% this week, beating economists' expectations.
Real disposable family income is up, and personal savings are up. Other than that, we're not doing so great.
Tariff revenues also climbed to a record $150 billion so far this year. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked, as someone with experience running investment hedge funds, where he would put his money right now.
The United States of America.
India is in talks with the U.S. to lower tariffs that could hit $40 billion of its exports, according to an Indian government source. President Donald Trump on Friday announced new levies on trade partners around the world. Some South and Southeast Asian countries saw lower than threatened U.S. tariffs. Here are the details.
Across the Asia-Pacific region, U.S. trading partners are grappling with the latest steep import duties imposed by President Donald Trump. In India, nearly $40 billion worth of exports could be hit, an Indian government source told Reuters on Friday, after the world's fifth biggest economy was given a 25% rate. The country is engaged in trade talks with the United States, the source said, but without a deal, the rate singles out India for harsher trade conditions than its major peers. It also potentially damages the economy of a strategic U.S. partner in Asia that is seen as a counterbalance to Chinese influence. Apparel Export Promotion Council Secretary General Mithileshwar Thakur said the tariffs aren't legal.
When you are a member of WTO, you negotiate a bound tariff, that you cannot go above that tariff. This reciprocal tariff does not honor that principle.
Trump's new executive order also includes a 20% duty for Taiwan. Taiwan's government said its rate was temporary and that it expected to reach a lower figure. Some South and Southeast Asian countries were able to breathe a sigh of relief. The US tariffs on their exports were lower than threatened and leveled the playing field with a rate of about 19 to 20% across the region's biggest economies. The world's second largest garment supplier, Bangladesh, welcomed the reduced rate. Nearly a quarter of its $40 billion apparel export sector goes to the US. Better news yet for Australia. Trade Minister Don Farrell confirmed Trump kept the minimum tariff rate of 10% for the country.
What this decision means, in conjunction with all of the other changes to other countries, is that Australian products are now more competitive into the American market.
Still, businesses and analysts warn of potential negative impacts on economic growth, saying there are no real winners in trade conflicts. The new tariffs will kick in at a risky moment for the US economy. Data on Friday show the country's jobs growth was weaker than previously thought. Government figures released Thursday also showed prices for certain home goods and furnishings surging the most since March 2022.
And joining us now to discuss President Trump's tariff policies is Rod Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital, and Tony Delgado, co-founder of Latino Wall Street. So first of all, good afternoon to you both. Thanks for coming on. Rod, I'll start with you today. So broadly speaking, in your opinion, how have the recent tariffs affected U.S. businesses, consumers, and the overall economy?
Well, the economy is doing extremely well. We've been quite impressed and pleasantly surprised in certain respects. I'm a free trader. I always have been. But the truth is, we've never had free trade except within the United States because our free trade deals have historically been extremely lopsided in favor of our allies. And that made sense after World War II. That made sense during the Cold War. It hasn't really made sense since then. And it's about time that we rebalanced. So we're seeing that happen, and we haven't seen the predicted inflation, and we haven't seen the predicted recession. I think we're really on track for a better global system.
Okay, Tony, same question to you and your reaction to what Rod said just now.
Well, I mean, President Trump is having to play hardball, right? He had to come in swinging as soon as he took office. He had to shake things up. So there was a lot of fear and uncertainty in the market, right? Initially, we had a pullback in the stock market. But now we see that a lot of that fear and uncertainty was just that, right? It was fear of the unknown. It was fear of going into something new. And the market has now rebounded. And a lot of these trade deals are getting negotiated. So, you know, if you have to negotiate, who better than the person who wrote the art of the deal?
So, Tony, there have been a lot of legal challenges towards this tariff agenda that President Trump has imposed. And one of the points that the Trump administration has brought up is, do trade deficits threaten national security? That's one of the points. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you see that, you know, we saw this during COVID, where you had essential supplies, medical equipment, medicine all being produced overseas. And then we had shortages, right? So I do think that it's a national security threat to not have more of these things made in America. And that's why we're excited for the president's America First agenda, bringing manufacturing back, using AI and automation. A lot of these factories really need to be in the United States, because if not, we're going to be at a huge disadvantage.
So, Rod, do you equate trade deficits to a national security issue?
They absolutely are. And, you know, if you're talking about a relatively small deficit over a relatively short period of time, that it's not a big deal. If you're talking about a purposeful policy, such as we pursued during the Cold War, that makes sense. We were trying to stand up our allies. We were trying to help them recover from being flattened in the war. It doesn't make sense today. And Tony nailed it. I mean, when we're completely dependent on China for pharmaceuticals, and for that matter, rare earths, it's just crazy. As the Chinese are likely to find out, in being completely dependent on Australia for iron ore. You've got to have domestic industry that takes care of national security needs. And if you don't, you're just whistling past the graveyard.
So, Rod, I want to play devil's advocate a little bit here. So, trade deficits have existed in every administration, not just the Trump administration. It has been longstanding. Why does the Trump administration get to declare national emergency?
Well, it gets to because the American people elected him overwhelmingly. He won all 7 swing states. He won an historic popular vote victory and an electoral vote victory. And so, clearly the people of this country have decided that we need a new direction. And the truth is, this is a good policy that made sense in the 50s and in the 80s that stopped making sense sometime in the 90s. And the Clinton administration and then the Bush administration indulged this fantasy that somehow this trade opening, most favored nation status, WTO membership, all the rest, complete outsourcing of U.S. industry would democratize China. And that was never true and has not taken place.
Okay, Tony, your reactions, and as well, let me ask you, who bears the cost of tariffs?
Well, I think the one thing I want to touch on is, for decades, we've been told that our greatest allies are people in other continents all across the world, when we have our 2 greatest allies should really be Canada and Mexico, and potentially other countries in Latin America where we're on the same hemisphere. If we do have to rely on Mexico and Canada for imports, they're closer, right? And they're closer from a national security standpoint. I think relying on China and Asia and places really, really far away as our greatest ally is not the best move forward. I think we need to strengthen relations with Latin America and with Canada. And as far as who bears the cost of tariffs, I mean, that's capitalism and that's the free market. It should make sense that things cost more if they are imported. So President Trump is restoring common sense to the economy.
Okay, Rod, ask you another thing about trade tariffs and in relation to our relationship with allies. Does it strain these relationships with key U.S. trading partners if you're putting tariffs on them?
Well, it's a tremendous adjustment. They're not used to it, just like they're not used to having to carry their weight in the NATO alliance, where historically and to this day, the United States pays 70.5% of the defense bill for an alliance of 32 nations. 31 wealthy nations, collectively with a larger population than the United States, pick up about 29.5% of the bill. And Donald Trump's recent agreement with NATO to move everybody up to a uniform 5% of GDP is a big adjustment to those guys, but it's necessary and it makes them stronger. And these trade deals will make them stronger in that you start leveling the playing field with your biggest trade partner, us, and you start encouraging domestic industry in both countries that is atrophied.
Okay, Tony, I want to build on what Rod is saying just now. Could tariffs, in terms of relations, push U.S. adversaries closer to each other?
Well, yeah, I mean, we saw that with the financial sanctions that were put on Russia during the Biden administration, right? We locked Russia out from using the U.S. dollar, right? We froze a bunch of assets of Russia, and it did push China and Russia closer together. So yeah, other alliances are going to form, but we're also going to figure out who our real friends are, right? So I think, again, this is the shakeup. We had the country essentially running on Tesla autopilot for the last 4 years with a president who clearly had dementia. And now the adults are back in control. We're taking the wheel and we're going to shake things up. So yes, it is going to push our adversaries closer together, but it's also going to push our allies closer together.
Okay, Rod, do you agree with what you just heard?
I do agree with the giant caveat that underpins this whole thing. America is 4% of global population. It's 26% of global GDP. These countries need us. Maybe not so much Russia at the moment, although they do a lot better if they made peace in Ukraine and cut an economic deal with the United States. But China is dependent on exports. For that matter, Germany is even more dependent on exports than China. These countries have to sell to the world's biggest consumer market. So there's a limit to the harm that gets done in either direction. And I really think Donald Trump has it figured out.
Okay, Tony, as the government becomes more reliant on the revenue from these tariffs, and we've heard from Treasury Secretary Bessent that billions are coming in, I'm just wondering, would it be more difficult fiscally to reduce or remove them as the government gets more and more dependent on them?
Well, I mean, you want to zoom out and you want to see, where do you want the country to be in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years? And relying on overseas trade, right, specifically China, for electric cars and electric car batteries, right? You're going to get to a point where China goes and says, okay, listen, you have to buy the batteries from us, right? And then you're going to fast forward, and 5 to 10 years down the line, they're just going to say, hey, you know what? You have to buy the cars from us. We're not going to sell you the car batteries if you don't buy the whole car from us. So it puts us in a disadvantage to be relying on these foreign nations. And I think we have to focus on this Made in America, Built in America policy.
Okay, well, guys, it's a fascinating conversation, but we're out of time for today. We can leave it there for now. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
All right, coming up, President Trump is imposing higher tariffs on Brazil and sanctioning key Brazilian Supreme Court justice. Arian Pasdar is standing by live with the latest. And more than 250 of the president's nominees remain stuck in the Senate, leaving top government posts empty. We spoke with a legal expert about the holdup. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
The Design Studio by Mathis Home is where your home decorating dreams come to life, with heirloom quality pieces for every room in your house. Right now, get the lowest prices of the year on top designer brands like Hooker, Universal, and Bernhard. We're the only place with designer furniture in stock, with complimentary delivery and design services. For the latest in luxury and style, Visit us now for exclusive discounts. Now through Labor Day, only at the Design Studio by Mathis Home.
With over 250 Trump nominees still stalled in the Senate, leadership posts across the federal government remain unfilled. What's behind the continued blockade, and what does it mean for the administration's agenda? For analysis, NTD's Kevin Hogan was joined by Hans von Spakovsky, senior legal fellow and manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative at the Heritage Foundation. Take a look.
Hans, welcome to the show. You've described the Senate's current handling of nominations as a continuation of former Democratic Senate leader Harry Reid's blockade. Can you explain how that process works and why it's so effective at stalling confirmations?
Right. First of all, look, the percentages tell the story here. By the end of August in Joe Biden's term in his first year, 74% of his nominees have been confirmed. Even with the two confirmations just happened, so far, only 42% of the president's nominees have been confirmed. And what is really foolish, I think, by the Republicans in the Senate is that in the face of obstruction by the Democrats, doing everything they can to try to slow this down, they have continued what are called the pro forma recesses of the Senate. In 2007, Harry Reid, in order to prevent President Bush from making any appointments when the Senate was in recess, put in this procedure so that even when they were out for weeks, and as you know, that's what happens in August, every 3 days, a senator would come in, gavel the Senate into operation, do no business, and then immediately gavel the Senate out so that they were never out of session, so the president could not take advantage of his constitutional authority to make a recess appointment. Why in the world has Senator Thune and the Republicans continue to do that? They're about to go out for almost all of August, and yet they're going to continue those pro forma sessions, which doesn't allow President Trump to fill all these empty slots in the federal government.
Thank you for explaining that. And as we've mentioned, as of late July, over 250 nominations are pending.
Right.
You say many are for vital leadership roles. From your perspective, what are the most urgent vacancies that need to be filled right now? And what's the cost of leaving them empty?
Well, there are so many open slots throughout the entire federal government. It's hard to narrow it down to one post. But folks need to remember, the size of the federal government, there's almost 2.5 million federal employees throughout all of these federal agencies and departments. The president only gets a relatively small handful of political appointees in key departments, Department of Defense, Justice Department, you name the agency, you name the department, and they are missing having individuals in the top leadership posts. Again, that also covers, probably the most important, is not a single U.S. attorney has been confirmed in 6 months. The U.S. attorneys are the chief criminal prosecutors for the Justice Department in every single state. There are over 90 U.S. attorney slots, and as I said, not a single one has gotten confirmed.
And why is that? I mean, I know why in terms of the procedure, but the motivation.
Well, I think the Senate is just moving too slow. Now, they are dealing with Democratic obstruction. For example, normally nomination votes are just voice votes. It's rare that you have a recorded vote. But for every single one of these nominees, even though Democrats know that Republicans have the votes to confirm them, they're asking for a recorded vote, which slows things down. They're also filing cloture. They're having to file cloture on every single one of these. That means Republicans have to file a motion to end debate, which also delays the confirmation vote. In the past, only a small percentage of nominees were controversial enough that a cloture vote had to be filed. with Donald Trump's nominees, cloture has been filed in 99% of every confirmation vote. So they're doing everything they can, Democrats are, to slow down the confirmation process.
Understood. Now, you've criticized Republican senators for continuing a process designed by Democrats to handicap Republican presidents. So walk us through that. Why? How are they continuing this?
Well, look, all they needed to do, as you know, they're going into their August recess. And all they needed to do was go into a real recess. The Supreme Court back in 2014 said that the president's ability to recess appoint, and what that means is the president can appoint someone to be, for example, a cabinet secretary. They get immediately sworn in, but they don't get to serve for the whole rest of a president's term. They only get to serve until the end of this particular congressional session, which allows Congress to review and look at their regular nomination. What the Supreme Court said in 2014 is for that recess power to come into play, the Senate has to be out for at least 10 days. And yet, what are Republicans continuing to do? They're coming in with these artificial sessions every 3 days, claiming that they are really in session when they're not. They're all in their home states. They are not in Washington. They're not conducting business. And again, I just don't see, I can't see a justification for them continuing to do this.
So let's talk about those 10 days that were, the Supreme Court was set, according to what you were saying. So
right.
If that's the formal break recess limit, what would allow for recess appointments? I mean, in practical terms, what would have to happen in August for President Trump to be able to make those appointments?
The Senate would have to agree with the House that it's going out and it's taking a recess from its current session of 10 days or more. If, for example, they said we're going out of session for the entire month of August, then as soon as the Senate recessed, the president could start making recess appointments of the individuals who are still out there waiting. Like I said, the most important ones, I would say right now, are the U.S. attorneys who are responsible for criminal prosecutions. And that's vital, particularly given the resistance in the immigration area that we are seeing in sanctuary cities and states from mayors and governors who are trying to obstruct federal immigration enforcement. There are a lot of local officials, frankly, that need to be prosecuted.
And you've mentioned the case of Alina Habba in New Jersey as an example of real-world consequences of these delays.
Right.
Could you walk us through why that situation is significant?
Yeah, look, there's a federal statute that allows a president to temporarily appoint a U.S. attorney for a couple of months when they first come into office while their regular nomination is pending before the Senate. That statute assumes that the Senate's going to act fairly quickly. But the deadline passed. The president had appointed her as the temporary U.S. attorney in New Jersey. The deadline passed under the statute, so she could no longer be the temporary U.S. attorney. That same statute then gives the federal judges the ability to appoint a successor while they're waiting for a U.S. attorney to be confirmed. What did those judges do, all of whom are Democratic nominees? They refused to reappoint her. Instead, they took the career number 2 and put her into that position. The Trump administration reacted by withdrawing Habba's nomination from the Senate. They had to do that in order to comply with another statute, the Federal Vacancies Act, so they could put her back in as the acting U.S. attorney. I mean, they have to run in circles to try to get the person they want heading up that office. And that is just one of the results of the delays in the confirmation process.
I follow what you're saying here. Now, if the Senate leaves for the August recess without major progress, what message would that send not just to voters, but to the federal agencies waiting on these nominees?
Well, look, we have seen the resistance throughout the federal government to what the president has been trying to do throughout many federal agencies. And if you leave career civil servants involved, those who've expressed their resistance to the president, and the polling shows that that to be true too, you're allowing them to basically run these agencies when the top leadership is not there. And what does that mean? It means that the president cannot put in the policies that 77 million Americans voted for when they elected him president. So they are severely handicapping the president by not confirming his nominees. And if they can't get around the obstruction of Democrats, well, then they need to reopen the recess appointment power so the president can get his people in.
Well, thank you for this great insight on this topic. Hans von Spakovsky, we appreciate it.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Trade tensions and political clashes between the U.S. and Brazil intensifying this week. President Trump is imposing higher tariffs on the South American nation and personal sanctions on a Brazilian Supreme Court justice. Trump says that's over an alleged witch hunt against former President Jair Bolsanaro. Let's bring in our Latin America correspondent, Arian Pazdar, who's standing by live. Arian, good afternoon. What is the latest on the back and forth between the U.S. and Brazil?
Hey, Don, good to see you. Thank you for having me. So the latest, just on Wednesday, President Trump signed a new executive order imposing an additional 40% tariffs on imports from Brazil. Now, there are a few goods that are exempt, for example, airplanes, airplane parts, energy products, and more. But Don, what's really important to note here is that Brazil is one of the few countries running a trade deficit with the United States, meaning the U.S. sells more goods to Brazil than Brazil sells to the United States. This might come in very handy for President Trump if those trade tensions continue to rise. But now, why is President Trump imposing those additional tariffs? Well, he says it's over an alleged, what he calls, witch hunt against former conservative President Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro is currently on trial over an alleged attempt to overthrow the government after the 2022 elections, very similar to what happened to President Trump after the 2020 elections and after January 6th. A lot of similarities there. So Trump says that, he's kind of protecting Bolsonaro and actually the Brazilian people. He says he's protecting them, really. So according to Trump, that's why he's imposing those tariffs. And then just on Friday, Don, Trump was asked if he is now willing to actually negotiate those new tariffs with the current Brazilian president, Lula da Silva. Let's take a look at how Trump responded to those questions.
Are you open to negotiate with Brazil? The Brazilian president, Lula, said he would like to talk. He requests a conversation. Would you talk to him now?
He can talk to me anytime he wants.
So are you open to tariffs?
He can talk to me anytime he wants.
What is on the table for Brazil?
Well, we'll see what happens. But I love the people of Brazil.
They don't
close to right now.
To trade with their president.
People running Brazil did the wrong thing.
So Don, just want to add real quick, we just heard President Trump saying that people running Brazil are doing the wrong thing. So he previously specifically said what he means by that is the prosecution against Bolsonaro. He did explain that and laid it out pretty clearly previously. Don?
So can you elaborate a bit more? Who exactly is Trump talking about when he says the people running Brazil, as you mentioned just now? Is it the current president? Or are there some specific people in power that Trump's talking about?
Yeah, Don, great question. So one of the people really is the current president, yes. But also I think it's more so about one of the key Brazilian Supreme Court justices. His name is Alexandre de Moraes. And when Trump signed that executive order I just mentioned on Wednesday, he not just put more tariffs on Brazil, but he's now also sanctioning this individual, this Supreme Court Justice, Alexandre de Moraes. Trump is using the global Magnitsky Act to sanction de Moraes. This act can be used against people who are committing human rights violations or who are being involved in corruption, for example. So now, Don, now you might ask yourself, what is happening? What's going to happen to de Moraes? How can you even sanction a person? It's not a country. How is this going to impact him? Well, one of the main things is that his assets in the US will be frozen and American companies are not allowed to do business with de Moraes. And so, for example, American credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, which are being used globally, Morice is not allowed to use those anymore. And it goes even further. Theoretically, he can't even access American services anymore. Like Google Maps, Google, Netflix, Amazon Prime, all of those things. On paper, he's not allowed to use those anymore. On top of that, the State Department also revoked the visa of Morice himself, the visas of his close family members, and of his close political allies. Just on Thursday, a State Department spokesperson commented on this Supreme Court justice and his situation. Let's take a look.
Morice is an activist judge that abused his authority by engaging in a targeted and politically motivated effort designed to silence political critics through the issuance of secret orders compelling online platforms, including U.S. social media companies, banning the accounts of individuals for posting protected speech. Morice further abused his position to authorize unjust pretrial detentions and undermine freedom of expression. The actions taken by Morice impact U.S. persons and companies, and the United States does not tolerate malign foreign actors who abuse their positions of authority to undermine freedom of expression of American citizens.
Now, Don, the spokesperson just said that Morice and the Supreme Court, but Morice especially, that they're first of all infringing on free speech rights and also hurting American companies. So I think the most well-known example for that is when Brazil banned X, formerly known as Twitter. So what happened was that Brazil's Supreme Court wanted X to first of all ban the accounts of right-wing politicians and conservative influencers. And then the Brazilian Supreme Court also wanted X to hand over information of those politicians and influencers to the Supreme Court. But Elon Musk didn't do that. So Brazil then, or the Supreme Court, took the step to just ban the platform in the entire country, which I have to say was very annoying because as a journalist, you really need X. Everybody's using it. Politicians are using it. So fortunately, it only lasted for a few weeks and then X was back online. Done.
All right. That's really interesting, Arian. But I just have one more question. How is Brazil's current president responding to the allegations by Trump? Does he want to negotiate the tariffs?
Yeah, Don. So President Lula da Silva, the current left-leaning president, he says that he does want to speak with Trump. On Friday, after Trump was interviewed, the clip we showed our viewers in the beginning of this live. After that, President Lula da Silva said that he's always open for dialogue. But Don, Lula da Silva, he did add that the ones who determine Brazil's direction are the Brazilians and their institutions, which kind of means like Trump has nothing to say in Brazil. And Lula, he made similar comments previously. So he says he's open to dialogue, but at the same time, he's like, we're Brazil and Trump really doesn't have anything to say here. He also said that he condemns interference by the US. He said that on Friday. In theory, Lula is seeking conversation with Trump. Don?
Okay, Arian, good to talk to you as always. Coming up, Meryl Streep wears dramatic red gown while filming Met Gala-like scene for The Devil Wears Prada 2. The FDA has new safety label requirements for opioid medications. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week. Still couldn't pay the bills. Skip meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 kids face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for kids facing hunger this summer.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay." And I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of children facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org. Working together, we can end hunger in America.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
A star-studded sequel to the 2006 magazine media cult classic, The Devil Wears Prada 2 is set to premiere next spring and will bring back Meryl Streep, Emily Blunt, Stanley Tucci, and Anne Hathaway in their original starring roles. 19 years later, a sequel to The Devil Wears Prada is in production in New York City. Eyewitness video shows actress Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway when the production team was in Midtown Manhattan. Streep on August 1st wore a red gown on set. That was for a scene featuring a Met Gala-like event at New York City's American Museum of Natural History. Besides Streep and Hathaway, Stanley Tucci and Emily Blunt from the original 2006 film will return as well. New cast includes Patrick Bramal, Kenneth Branagh, Simone Ashley, Pauline Chalamet, and Lucy Liu. The Devil Wears Prada 2, set to premiere May 1st, 2026, is shaping up to be a star-studded affair.
I never learned how to do that properly. I actually don't know too, but I think...
And labels on an opioid medication must now highlight the risk of long-term use. The update from the Food and Drug Administration comes days after the agency announced efforts to combat the opioid and addiction crisis. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more.
The FDA is implementing safety label changes to all opioid pain medication labels to, quote, better emphasize and explain the risks associated with their long-term use. The health department says these changes follow a public advisory committee meeting in May that reviewed data showing serious risks such as misuse, addiction, and both fatal and non-fatal overdoses for patients who use opioids over long periods. FDA Commissioner Marty McCary says the death of almost 1 million Americans during the opioid epidemic has been one of the cardinal failures of the public health establishment. This long overdue labeling change is only part of what needs to be done. We also need to modernize our approval processes and post-market monitoring so that nothing like this ever happens again. This announcement comes 2 days after the FDA recommended synthetic 7-OH, a chemical found in many kratom-related products, to be classified as a controlled substance. The department said the move was to get ahead of another possible wave in the opioid crisis.
18 years after the approval of OxyContin by the FDA, we woke up to a terrible crisis that may have killed almost 1 million Americans. And then again, right afterwards, with fentanyl. We have a history of being asleep at the wheel.
The health department also announced that Susan Menarez was sworn in as the new director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says, "I have full confidence in her ability to restore the CDC's role as the most trusted authority in public health and to strengthen our nation's readiness to confront infectious diseases and biosecurity threats."
I'm pleased to announce that we're officially restoring the Presidential Fitness Test and the Presidential Fitness Award, and it's going to be a very big thing.
President Donald Trump, along with several athletes, including Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker, announced the return of the presidential test. The annual test is for students and consists of several exercises measuring strength, endurance, and flexibility. The top performers in each age and gender group will receive a Presidential Physical Fitness Award. The physical fitness test was first introduced in 1966 by President Lyndon B. Johnson. Then in 2012, President Obama changed it with an assessment called the Fitnessgram, which focused on bettering individual health. And the Trump administration also sent letters to 17 drug manufacturers, giving them 60 days to lower prices in the U.S. President Trump said he would deploy every tool available to, quote, protect American families from continued abusive drug pricing practices. In the letter, President Trump says, right now, brand name drug prices in the United States are up 3 times higher on average than elsewhere for the identical medications. This unacceptable burden on hardworking American families ends with my administration. Now, drug manufacturers have pushed back on this idea before, saying that lowering the drug prices in the U.S. would make it difficult for them to cover the research and development costs for high-priced drugs. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Coming up, can music help the injured brain heal? Brandon Fallon of NTD's Vital Signs joins us for insights into how music affects the brain and how it could play a role in treating dementia.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural, organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure, natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。 我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
Welcome back to NTD. I'm joined in studio now by NTD health correspondent and host of Vital Signs, Brendan Fallon. Vital Signs offers natural and nutritional ways of optimizing our health. So Brandon, it's always great to see you. It seems like we're talking about music and its impacts on the brain. What do you have for us?
That's right, Don. It's quite. I've got something quite amazing to show you today. An interview I did with a neuroscientist from the University of Central Florida, who's been researching the effects of music on the brain. We've known for some time, they did these studies back in the 90s that with Mozart, where they played Mozart to some students, and they were able to show that their spatial reasoning increased after listening to Mozart temporarily. That's like being able to imagine how paper is folded in the brain or working out like maze puzzles in the mind. They could visualize these things. But it's not just classical music, and what this neuroscientist, Dr. Sugoya, has shown is that even with Alzheimer's patients who are thought to, in their latter stages of the disease, thought to have lost their memories, music can have a profound effect, and we see this in this first clip.
All right.
If we give the music to the person who has the good experience with it, all the good memories, okay, and then usually the Alzheimer patient, they just depressed at a later stage. They're not going to respond anything. But if you give like this music, this happened to the patient. You know, the patient start fully awake.
Wow.
You see the eye open up tremendously, right? So then that's the difference. So then usually the people depressed, the eye. Yeah, and then he started talking, never stop. Right. And then this effect happened if you give this music attached to his memory or the those patient memory.
Yeah. So he'd basically been in a non-responsive state. He was just spending his days sitting there, not talking, not engaging. He
just like this,
and
right?
Suddenly he's waking up.
And then the eye opened up.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a dramatic effect. Because our brain, just like that. So then the memory, not in one place. Several different part of the brain contain one memory related. And then the hippocampus retrieving those memory back and then put together and make sense. So then that's the brain function. Okay. And then those memory, maybe, yeah. Okay, so then this could be my brain when I'm here in the Hotel California. As you can see, the brain everywhere got activated because those memory related to this music activated, and then the brain tried to retrieve those things.
You know, that example that Dr. Sugaya gave, it reminded me of this idea in ancient Chinese culture. Music is actually a form of medicine to a certain degree. I think, if I'm not wrong, that there's a saying that music first and medicine later or after. So I definitely think there's something there in music.
Well, certainly we cannot ignore the wisdom of traditional Chinese medicine and medical understanding. I'm sure there's a lot of value to that, and a lot of truth to that. We know how music makes us feel. It can lift our mood. It can and have the opposite effect if we're listening to the wrong type of music. And it has a profound effect on the brain. And what's interesting, you may look at something like this and wonder how it might be applied to healing. And it could lie in the fact that music and processing and language processing use the same region of the brain, just different sides. And this is what Dr. Sugaya talks about in this next clip we'll look at, Don.
All right.
Music and then the language using the same part of the brain.
The music and the language.
Yeah, language, right? Okay, so this is the picture of the resting stage, and then this is the brain using the language. You can see the red on the left side here, right? And then when somebody listening the music, the right hand side, exactly the opposite side, lights up. And then this area called blockers area, this area called Wernicke's area, both of those are the language center. So we are using the same language center, but the music tend to use to the right, and then the language used to the left. But if somebody got a stroke or something, and then losing this function, that's always, not always, many cases happen. They get the damage to this part of the brain, and then they start losing the words of the language. Then, if we give such a person music, especially I like the music with the lyrics, so then the singing is quite good. And then those training can recover this part of the brain partially, and also they could start using the other side of the brain for the language.
Wow, this is a really interesting clip. I'm wondering if you have anything else to add.
Well, I would add, Don, I mean, this is exciting what's coming out here, and viewers can find out more about this, actually specifically about how music can be used in a Parkinson's context as well, Parkinson's disease, where people gradually use their motor functioning and end up dying eventually. But more generally, I think it just points to the fact that engagement, keeping the brain engaged, is a very powerful thing to preserve the brain and preserve brain health. And there was a nun study, a famous study done with nuns going back a few decades now, where they found that of the nuns who could speak 4 or more languages, they developed dementia 6% of the time, compared to the nuns who only spoke 1 language, they developed dementia 30% of the time, a huge increase.
Right. Well, I think the takeaway here is to listen to more music, right?
That's certainly, can't go wrong there.
All right. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Don.
And to see that full Vital Signs interview on music and the brain, just go to your web browser and enter ept.ms/music. Coming up, what is the most stressful thing about work? Is it relationship? Is it the deadlines? A less licensed therapist explains in the next hour.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges.
So Ariel, we made this yearbook for you. It has notes from all the people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
August was born 3 pounds, 9.8 ounces. When I first saw him, it was like a whole range of emotions, joy, sadness. There's gonna be obstacles. You're gonna feel like, why is it happening to me? And you're gonna realize you're not the only one. There's no perfect way. Your own way will be the perfect way. You're gonna protect it with all your might. Just seeing him happy, it's just joy, you know? I look through his eyes, I can envision like a whole future with him already. To throw the first football to him, give him ice cream for the first time. Oh man, he can smile now. I'm happy because he's advancing in life, you know, he's growing. Being a young dad, it's not giving up, it's shifting. My life is now devoted to his life.
Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Don Ma. Here are today's top stories. Former special counsel Jack Smith is being investigated for potentially committing illegal political activity related to the 2024 election. White House tariffs facing legal challenges. The Justice Department appeared before an appeals court this week to defend the president's sweeping tariff policy. We spoke with the former White House liaison to the U.S. Department of Commerce. President Trump is imposing higher tariffs on Brazil and sanctioning a key Brazilian Supreme Court justice. Arian Pazdar is standing by live with the latest. Plus, a licensed therapist explains what makes work so stressful and what to do about it.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for staying with us. Jack Smith, the former special counsel who investigated then-candidate Donald Trump before his re-election, is now being investigated. The Office of Special Counsel, an independent federal body, confirmed the investigation on Saturday. It's looking into potential illegal political activity under the Hatch Act, a U.S. law banning certain officials from political activity. This follows a request from Senator Tom Cotton, who asked the office to investigate Smith, alleging that Smith used the DOJ to influence the election in favor of then-President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Smith was assigned to investigate Trump by then-Attorney General Merrick Garland under the Biden administration. Major trade deals and successful peace negotiations. It was another whirlwind week for the Trump administration. NTD's Daniel Monahan has your weekly recap.
President Trump was in Scotland this week. While there, he negotiated a landmark trade deal with the European Union, securing hundreds of billions of dollars in new U.S. investment and more.
It's a good deal for everybody, I believe. And I think you were saying this is probably the biggest deal ever reached in any capacity, trade or beyond trade.
It is. It's a huge deal. It will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic.
President Trump also managed to play a role in brokering peace between Cambodia and Thailand.
I called the prime ministers of each, and I said, we're not going to make a trade deal unless you settle the war. A lot of people are killed, you know that.
The two countries announced an immediate and unconditional ceasefire soon after. Similar efforts by the Trump administration have brokered peace between Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and India and Pakistan.
It's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
The president opened his new 18-hole golf course while in Scotland, even making time to play a quick round. Trump later returned home from his trip to Scotland with his grandkids in tow. The Trump administration announced multiple new trade deals this week with South Korea, Cambodia, Thailand, and Pakistan. Meanwhile, the president also imposed a 50% tariff on Brazil and some copper imports. Second quarter GDP growth rate results came in at 3% this week, beating economists' expectations.
Real disposable family income is up, and personal savings are up. Other than that, we're not doing so great.
Tariff revenues also climbed to a record $150 billion so far this year. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked, as someone with experience running investment hedge funds, where he would put his money right now.
The United States of America.
The Justice Department appeared before an appeals court this week to defend the president's sweeping tariff policy. NTD's Carrie Dunst spoke with Anthony LaBruna, former White House liaison to the U.S. Department of Commerce, about the basis for these tariffs.
Thank you so much for joining us, Anthony. The party challenging the president claims President Trump is abusing his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to renegotiate these tariffs. Can you explain the legal rationale that the Trump administration is using to justify this approach? And I'd also be interested if you think that it's their best legal strategy amongst their options.
Well, what I'd say is that we have a hyper-political group of judges looking to stand in the way of the Trump agenda. You know, as the former Commerce staffer, one thing I know is that sometimes you have career civil servants who will work against the administration, both lawyers and non-lawyers. I think what the president is doing by enacting this emergency powers to implement tariffs is to ensure that the economy doesn't go into a recession like we saw under Joe Biden. So I think it's all within his power as President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, to ensure that we do not go that direction as an economy. And I think right now with these 11 judges who were gearing their questions aggressively towards the Trump administration and the Department of Justice, I don't think this is going to be a fair case. And at the end of the day, this decision, the presidential powers, will be decided at the Supreme Court. So no matter what gets ruled here in the trade courts, I think we'll end up at the Supreme Court level, and that's where we'll see the presidential powers enforced.
If this will go to the Supreme Court, what will happen in the gully between where this case ends and then it going to the Supreme Court? Will the president be able to maintain his tariff policy while awaiting judgment from the Supreme Court? Or does this body have the authority to somehow pause until it gets and escalates to the Supreme Court?
They would have the ability to pause these tariffs, but I question if Trump would follow those orders, right? These are hyper political judges that do not have the best interests for the American worker like President Trump does. I think it's key, right? You have to have a very, with Secretary Lutnick, a secretary who is willing to lead on that and enforce these tariffs, even if these lower courts look to stand in their way. I think he has that with Howard Lutnick. I think he has a strong Department of Justice, and I think they will continue to file appeals at the court's level.
Now, can you explain what this Yoshida precedent is and what's the sort of repercussions of that in the discussions yesterday?
Well, what I believe is that these judges are looking at if the president is actually using the correct law, and is it still able to be used because of the status of the tariffs that he's enforcing now. For most Americans, they look at the president as the free leader, as the commander-in-chief, not these 11 trade judges that are sitting on the bench questioning everything the president does on the economic side. So going forward, what I think will happen with these rulings is you're going to see a very dragged out process as other countries come to the table to have negotiations about their tariff rates.
The right to, trial by a jury of your peers, if you will, is fundamental to the U.S. And those who brought this case are apparently representative of small businesses. Small businesses, require goods internationally to stay competitive with larger corporate players. Are you suggesting that the case doesn't have any merit at all and doesn't deserve to be heard because it ultimately remains with the authority of the president? Or do these small businesses, have a right to a hearing and potentially relief?
I believe everybody has their day in court, and I don't think that the president is looking to stand in the way and prevent these court hearings. He's sending the Department of Justice, he's sending his lawyers to articulate his side of the message on these tariffs. So I don't think that's the case. I think the president wants this to be open. I think you have judges who are not Republican who lean more to Democrats, so it might, not be in the president's favor at that level. And I think that if it does arise to the Supreme Court, it's going to be a much more fair hearing for both sides. And that is, if you want anything as a small business, you're going to want to have the most fair court in the land, which is the U.S. Supreme Court. So if this does not rule in President Trump's favor or the small business favor, I would say that I'd want these hearings, I'd want these cases to go in front of the most powerful court in the land if I was a small business owner.
And just as we finish up, Anthony, what happens next? It doesn't appear that there was any judgment yesterday. The hearing was yesterday. So what can we expect over the next days and weeks?
Well, I think we're going to see two things. I think we're going to see some of these countries who do not meet the August 1st deadline continue to come to the table. I see President extending the deadline date for these tariffs. And I can also, we will see the Department of Justice recalibrate and look to file different appeals in that court as they await final judgment.
Trade tensions and political clashes between the U.S. and Brazil intensifying this week. President Trump is imposing higher tariffs on the South American nation and personal sanctions on a Brazilian Supreme Court justice. Trump says that's over an alleged witch hunt against former President Jair Bolsanaro. Let's bring in our Latin America correspondent, Arian Pasdar, who's standing by live. Arian, what is the latest on the back and forth between the U.S. and Brazil?
Hey, Don, good to see you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, the latest. On Wednesday, President Trump signed an executive order imposing an additional 40% tariff on imports from Brazil. Now, a few goods are being exempt from that order. Airplanes, airplane parts, energy products, and more. But Don, what's really important to note here is the fact that Brazil is running a trade deficit with the United States. It's one of the only countries where that's the case. It means that the US sells more to Brazil than Brazil sells to the United States. This might come in very handy for President Trump, Don, if those trade tensions continue to rise. But now, why is President Trump imposing those additional tariffs? Well, he says it's tied to an alleged witch hunt against former conservative Brazilian President Jair Bolsanaro. So Bolsonaro is currently on trial over an alleged attempt to overthrow the government after the 2022 elections. And his whole situation is very similar to Trump's situation after the 2020 election and after January 6th. So Trump now says he kind of wants to protect Bolsonaro and really protect the Brazilian people. So according to Trump, that's why he is imposing those additional tariffs on Brazil now. Just on Friday, Trump was asked if he's actually open to negotiate these latest tariffs with the current Brazilian government. Let's take a look at how President Trump responded to those questions.
Are you open to negotiate with Brazil? The Brazilian President Lula said he would like to talk. He requested a conversation. Would you talk to him now?
He can talk to me anytime he wants.
So are you open to tariffs?
Yeah, he can talk to me anytime he wants.
What is on the table for Brazil?
Well, we'll see what happens. But I love the people of Brazil.
They don't
Close to Russia.
related to trade with their president.
People running Brazil did the wrong thing.
So we just heard Trump talking about the people running Brazil are doing the wrong thing. And he previously he explained what he means by that, which is that he says that it is about a prosecution against Bolsonaro. Don?
So who exactly is Trump talking about when he says the people running Brazil? Is it the current president, or are there some specific people in power that Trump's talking about?
Yeah, Don, great question. So I think it's mostly about a Brazilian Supreme Court justice named Alexandre de Moraes. So in Wednesday's executive order, which I just mentioned, Trump not only levied or put tariffs on the nation of Brazil, he also imposed sanctions on this Brazilian Supreme Court justice, on this individual. Trump is using the Global Magnitsky Act to do that. This act allows you to basically sanction a person if this person commits either human rights violations or is involved in corruption. But now, Don, you might ask yourself, how is this going to affect this Brazilian Supreme Court justice? After all, he's an individual. He's not a nation. So how can sanctions affect him? Well, first of all, his assets in the United States are going to be frozen, and American companies are not allowed to do business with him anymore. So that means, for example, American credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, he can't use those anymore. And those are global credit cards. The entire world basically uses those, but he can't use them anymore. It even goes further. On paper, it's theoretically not allowed to use Netflix, Google Maps, Amazon Prime, all those American services that people take for granted. Yeah, if you're sanctioned, you can't use those services anymore. On top of that, the State Department revoked the visa of Morice himself, the visas of his close family members, and the visas of his political allies, his close political allies. Just on Thursday, a State Department spokesperson commented about the situation of this Brazilian Supreme Court justice. Let's take a look.
Morice is an activist judge that abused his authority by engaging in a targeted and politically motivated effort designed to silence political critics through the issuance of secret orders compelling online platforms, including U.S. social media companies, banning the accounts of individuals for posting protected speech. Morice further abused his position to authorize unjust pretrial detentions and undermine freedom of expression. The actions taken by Morice impact U.S. persons and companies, and the United States does not tolerate malign foreign actors who abuse their positions of authority to undermine freedom of expression of American citizens.
Now, the spokesperson just mentioned that Morice infringed on human rights and hurt American companies. I think the most well-known example of that is when Brazil, I think in 2023, banned the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, in the country. On.
Okay, Arian, we're a bit short on time today, so good to talk to you. Thank you. Coming up, Secretary of State Marco Rubio praising Vice President J.D. Vance as a strong candidate for the 2028 presidential election. How much does early preparation matter? Our expert panel breaks it down. Stay tuned.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man, because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Puretang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Puretang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio praised Vice President J.D. Vance as a strong candidate for the 2028 presidential election. To discuss the next election, I spoke with Republican strategist Matt Klink and Mike Leon, Director of Strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. Take a look. Matt, I'll start with you today. What were your first reactions, hearing Rubio praising Vance for 2028?
Well, look, it's a smart move by the Secretary of State, who clearly has demonstrated his desire to be president. Case in point, he ran initially in 2016. But I think right now, 3 years out from the 2028 election, I think it's the smart move to keep things friendly in the Trump-Vance administration. And he and J.D. Vance are apparently very close friends. So, again, it's a good call. I think right now the so-called dream ticket, again, 3 years out. So with that caveat would be a J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio ticket. But it's still early, and Marco Rubio may yet throw his hat into the ring at some point.
Okay, Mike, I'm curious as to what you think as well.
Yeah, first of all, good to see everybody. Matt's right about 3 years out. He said it numerous times because it's so early. It's 3 years out, right? Like voter attention span and what happens with the administration and the midterm elections. There's so many different variables at play. There was a YouGov poll that showed J.D. Vance had a 51% unfavorability rating right now. So, and again, that's a small sample size and that's a snapshot in time, but who knows how people are going to feel in the next 18 months as we get to the midterm elections, as we get to the next 3 years. So there's a reason why Matt kept repeating 3 years from now, and it's still early. But I agree. Marco Rubio may throw his hat in the ring. As Secretary of State, as somebody who's Latino and that growing population of folks that are 62.1 million, voters in that eligible block. So I think it's smart of him to do that while also maybe keeping the door open for a presidential bid for himself in 2028.
Matt, do you think there's actually a risk to starting too early, perhaps burning out media attention too soon?
For the Republicans, no. And you know what? Even for the Democrats, you're already seeing people start to make some waves. So you saw Rahm Emanuel go on Megyn Kelly and sound like a hardcore moderate, talking about, men should not be competing in women's sports and, all of the hot button social issues that have been the millstone around the Democratic Party's necks. So you're starting to see some of it, and I think you're going to see more and more of it. Steve Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, was out making some statements earlier. AOC clearly thinks that her lane is going to be to run from the left, and she's been out touring with Bernie Sanders on her End Oligarchy tour. So there are people on the Dem side making waves, and right now, I don't think any Republican wants to step on Donald Trump's messaging, but you are seeing J.D. Vance being a pretty aggressive vice president, going out to events that are gaining quite a bit of publicity. For example, the fundraiser that he just did in Massachusetts. So again, it's never too early to start, at least for a little tinkering around the edges.
So, Mike, it is 3.5 years out, but, for me personally, at least, it's still fun to talk about these things. So let me ask you, President Trump suggested that both Rubio and Vance could be successors to the Make America Great Again movement. What do you think about that? To what degree do you think Rubio and Vance might differ on that in style or policy?
Yeah. And well, first of all, just to piggyback on what Matt said, it's never too early to saturate, right? I'm in the content space, so you got to feed the machine. So there is no wrong answer in terms of going on and doing these interviews and having that content live in perpetuity out there. But in terms of how these guys would differ from Donald Trump, I mean, we've seen some stark differences. If you just go back to the 2015 going into 2016 primaries of how Marco Rubio would handle some things differently than Donald Trump. But obviously, we know that he's very staunch on, Vladimir Putin is a dictator, and he would be maybe a little bit more of a hard negotiator with respect to global politics and how he's already treated Russia and China as his lens sitting on the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Senate. J.D. Vance, again, I'm very curious as to what J.D. Vance's, some of his policies would look like. I mean, right now they have to fall in line with the president. Do they think tariffs are a good negotiating strategy? Do they piggyback on that? There's so many different variables, Don. Like we truly need to see what the One Big Beautiful Bill's impact will be in 27 and beyond. And we need to see what happens in the midterm elections in 26 before we can actually get a true read on if either of these guys will differ from what worked versus what didn't work. And yeah, it's great to talk about it now. And it's great, like I said, like Matt just said about the Democrats going out there and going and doing media that is potentially, something that they're opposed to, like a Megyn Kelly and Rahm Emanuel probably wouldn't sit down for a conversation. But you should be having these conversations. You should go out there and do these things. But we really don't know what these guys will differ from policy-wise. Kamala Harris tried to distance herself from some of the Biden things, and people were like, well, why didn't you mention that when you were vice president, right? So those are some of the things that I think J.D. Vance would have to get ahead of if 26 and 27 don't go the way the Republicans want.
So, Matt, anything to build on in terms of successors for MAGA?
I think it's fair to say that no one is going to get a free ride, that even if Trump is popular in 2027, that if J.D. Vance is the heir apparent, people are not just going to get out of his way and say, okay, J.D., it's your turn now. Somebody will offer the Republican alternative, whether it's a Ron DeSantis or a Nikki Haley or a Marco Rubio or a Mike Pompeo. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And look, with the Democrats, we know that the Democratic primary in 2028 is going to be a wide open affair where the progressives will be competing with the moderates. And it's as it should be, that, a healthy competition in the primaries is a sign of a robust democracy. So every American, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you should want a lot of candidates in the race, and they'll let the best ideas find their way to the top.
Okay, Mike, a new college Emerson poll has Vance in the lead over three potential Democratic candidates. That's Governor Newsom, AOC, and former Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. So, Mike, what do you think about that poll?
Yeah, again, 3 years early, right, Don? But I mean, but there are some things in that poll that you can take away from that. Like first, back to Matt's overall point about going to do media. Pete Buttigieg was just on The Breakfast Club, right? A popular hip hop morning show that's syndicated nationally, right? And so you see Democrats are starting to do these non-traditional, media things, and everyone raves about Pete's media style, but he's only been a mayor as his highest qualification. Obviously, he was the Secretary of Department of Transportation. AOC has only been in the House of Representatives, right? What would be her path to being president? Although we did nominate a junior senator, obviously once upon a time, who ended up becoming president back in 2008. So it's a wide open field. And I think, to Matt's point, I want more competition. I want more names to be in there. I truly think amongst all those folks that were in the poll against J.D. Vance on the Democratic side, I think that there's somebody else that will emerge from that. We're seeing Josh Shapiro right here on our screen. We haven't even mentioned him, and he's the governor of a big swing state, right? Gretchen Whitmer's on our screen right now, too, as well, and she's won an election twice there in Michigan, another swing state. So there's a lot of candidates right now. I think it would make sense that J.D. Vance is slightly ahead of some of those folks because they've been in the news. Gavin Newsom, obviously, with the LA stuff and with respect to some of his battles with Trump early on in the administration in these first 6 months. So it would make sense that he's ahead by a small margin and against some of those candidates. But I truly think we don't have the Democratic challenger just yet to what would be in 2028.
A star-studded sequel to the 2006 magazine media cult classic, The Devil Wears Prada 2 is set to premiere next spring and will bring back Meryl Streep, Emily Blunt, Stanley Tucci, and Anne Hathaway in their original starring roles. 19 years later, a sequel to The Devil Wears Prada is in production in New York City. Eyewitness video shows actresses Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway when the production team was in Midtown Manhattan. Streep on August 1st wore a red gown on set that was for a scene featuring a Met Gala-like event at New York City's American Museum of Natural History. Besides Streep and Hathaway, Stanley Tucci and Emily Blunt from the original 2006 film will return as well. New cast includes Patrick Bramal, Kenneth Branagh, Simone Ashley, Pauline Chalamet, and Lucy Liu. Devil Wears Prada 2, set to premiere May 1st, 2026, is shaping up to be a star-studded affair. Coming up, what is the most stressful thing about work? Is it relationships? Is it the deadlines? A licensed therapist explains. Prices are rising for car owners beyond the initial outlay. Your get-around town might be guzzling more than fuel. An automotive expert breaks it down. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn. But the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Joining us now to discuss mental health in the workplace is Dr. Jacqueline Campbell, licensed therapist and conscious leadership strategist. So first of all, good afternoon, Dr. Campbell. Thanks for joining us. So mental health, has become a rather prominent topic, I would say, in the workplace in recent times. So I think it'll be a relevant conversation today. And if I may, I'd like to start with the basics. What do we mean when we talk about mental health or emotions in a work setting?
That's a really good question. Thank you so much, because it is such a hot topic now. Before, we could have the hustle culture and we can grind and we can push through, and it's just not working anymore. The fast-paced technology, our brains can't keep up. So the decline in mental health is on the rise. There's an increase in silent quitting. People are tense and they're not happy in their work environments. It's affecting the home life too. Stress, insomnia, burnout, they're all increasing. So we have an obligation to address this even at work.
So you mentioned technology, you mentioned burnout. What puts the most pressure, would you say, on mental health at work? It's probably a combination of things, right? Is it relationships, the deadlines, the workload sometimes? And how do you overcome them?
It's a little bit of everything because it's so multifaceted. We actually need leaders to be emotionally intelligent to give those skills by default to their team. When you have a deadline, it increases cortisol and your adrenaline. It puts us into fight or flight. We're not running from danger, but it sure does feel like it in our bodies. And the average person doesn't know how to manage that. The average leader doesn't know how to help them do that, and they don't know how to do it themselves. So what we're needing is emotionally intelligent leaders who can teach this by implementing not only emotional regulation in the workplace, but increasing stress reduction techniques in meetings.
So you bring up leaders, you bring up managers. What does an emotionally intelligent manager look like?
Right. So that's confusing to a lot of people. So it's a great question. A lot of people don't know that emotional intelligent leaders, they don't need to be soft. They need to have soft skills at the exact same time as being peak performers. This is the neurological balance between the left hemisphere of our brain, which is action-oriented, and it's contained and focused, as well as the right hemisphere of our brain, which is more intuitive, more connected. That's where the soft skills come from. And so when we're talking about leaders having to make these decisions in fast-paced environments with high stakes, they need a balance of both at the same time. So they can have one foot in the peak performer and one foot in the emotional, intelligent, intuitive leader, even if, let's say, technology is innovating and the whole corporation or the whole organization, because you're talking about schools, healthcare system, police departments, and the corporate sector, everybody is always under stress. We need to be able to know how to do both at the same time.
Would you say, Dr. Campbell, emotional intelligence, is this something that people are born with, or is it something that can be developed over time? And how do you develop it?
Right. So I believe, personally and professionally, that we all have an innate ability to connect. We're social creatures. And in order for us to survive and thrive, we need to be able to know how to connect. You can see it in all mammals. They naturally gravitate and nurture their young. They protect their young, but at the same time, they know how to do the hunt, right? And bring in the food, right? That's us going to work and hustling to bring in what we need to take care of our families. But we weren't built to always run and perform and be at our best. That's kind of like an animal constantly chasing their food. They only chase it when they need to bring it in, or they only run from something that's causing danger in the event that they're in danger. They're not doing it all the time. So us, yes, we do have it naturally in us, but it's been conditioned out of us because we're constantly disconnected on electronics. We are constantly trying to be in our performance mode instead of being able to calm, decompress, pay attention to our loved ones, and genuinely just be connected. We need to learn how to do those skills again. So it's falling to the workplace to be able to teach us how to do that.
Okay, Dr. Campbell, let me just ask you one more question. So here's a picture for you. Someone is mentally pressured, they're stressed, they want to speak up, and it just so happens that it's actually the boss or the manager or the leader who is the source of this pressure. So for this person, it might feel like, they're jeopardizing their job if they speak up. What do you do?
I love that question, actually, because it is unfortunate that a lot of times that's where the stress is coming from. When you're talking about a family unit or when you're talking about an organization, pressure comes from the top and it goes down. Just like military, if you have a problem at your ranks, look at your leader. Not to put more pressure on them, power equates responsibility. So we're talking about the ability to slow down and look at yourself, self-reflection, and take accountability without shaming. A lot of times leaders get defensive because nobody taught them to effectively take accountability with the absence of shame. Fear and shame are the two things like that. They will turn off your brain. And leaders, especially if they were really good at their job, they were promoted into a leadership position, but they weren't taught how to be able to self-reflect, take accountability when they are making mistakes, or if an employee is having a problem with them. What I've seen, and this is actually why I left the mental health field, moved into leadership development, is when an employee does speak up, they usually get shut down or dismissed. We need a leader who has the ability to sit back and say, what are the problems, and look at them objectively. This allows them to be neutral, even when they're the source of the stress. This is actually the balance of the left and right hemispheres. It gives them this ability.
Okay, well, Dr. Campbell, that's our time today, but great advice. I think I just might use some of those tips that you talked to us about. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, prices are rising for car owners, and it's not what you think. The costs we're talking about here might seem small at first, but they add up. Beyond the initial outlay, your get around town might be guzzling more than just fuel. NTD's Stefania Cox spoke with automotive expert Lauren Fix from Car Coach Reports about the true cost of owning a car.
How much does it cost, on average, to run a car in the U.S.?
Well, it depends what you own and, of course, where you live. And there's going to be a lot of variances there, how well you take care of your car. But on average, if you take everything across the country, about $12,800 on average per year to make your vehicle function. And people don't realize that. They're thinking, what are you talking about? I don't pay that much in car payments. But it's all the little incidentals that you don't think of: insurance, depreciation, gas, parking, and all the things that you think, oh, yeah, I didn't calculate that in. But that's the actual cost to you.
Yeah, so worthwhile to lay this all out. What are the main what are the main pieces of the pie here?
There's a lot of pieces of the pie to consider. So if you're taking your average cost of a car right now, if you were to purchase a new car, somewhere around $1,000 a month. And that's quite a bit. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it was a couple $100s a month to buy a car. I remember buying my first car, but now you're looking at $1,000 is the average across the entire country for a new car. So people are keeping their used cars. They're on the road longer, typically around 15 years. So previous to the pandemic, the average age of a car on the road was between 10 and 12 years. Now we're looking at 15 years. People are getting smarter about getting the most value out of their vehicles. But when you look at the total cost, you are going to have depreciation. There's nothing you can do about that. 99% of cars on the road do lose value over time. There are some exceptions, such as Ferraris or Porsches, but most people don't own vehicles like that. So rarely are you in a situation at the end of your lease where your vehicle is worth more than the buyout at the end, which is why most people don't buy out their leases if you're looking at a new vehicle. But when you're looking at costs in general, now the cost of gasoline has dropped under the President Trump's term so far. Hopefully it'll drop further, but right now we're looking at around $2,200 a month on average. Obviously more expensive in California and in New York than it might be in the middle of the country or Texas where they're refining it. Insurance, well, that's gone up across the board. We've covered that on our channel. And the reason for insurance costs going up across the board, and you would think, oh, the cost of replacing the car. That might be one of them. But electric vehicles cost more. And when you're in a fender bender in an electric vehicle or a hybrid, typically the insurance company does not want to take the risk of something else happening that you can't see, such as the battery catching fire, which would be very serious. So they're totaling the cars, and then the cars aren't usable. So it costs more because they have to replace that vehicle. Then you've got the fires that were in California, the floods that were on the East Coast, all of that across the country, even though you're like, I don't live there. I live in Mississippi. I didn't have any problems at all. But the total cost of that insurance company goes up. So your average cost of insurance is around $1,700 right now, which is quite a bit. So I always recommend every 6 months, shop around, because your policy is a 6-month policy. And you can go online without calling all these companies. You can go to an aggregator locally and say, hey, this is my car. I've got a really nice clean driving record. I have a really nice credit score. I don't have young kids driving. Can I save some money? And a lot of times they'll tell you to take a school, and that'll lower it as well. And that's just a day of your time, but it's a savings. Maintenance is big. The car care council is really big on telling people the average cost is around $1,200, but that's increased to $1,500 a year. So what is that? Oil changes, tire rotations, alignments, all the things that we don't think of. So when you're thinking about maintenance on a vehicle, it's really important that you be proactive. And what does that mean? That book in the glove box that most people never look at, there's a service schedule in there. And you have to look at that. And I always say, but underneath all those napkins, most people don't even look at that. But there is a service schedule. And that service schedule will help you save money, because if it says that, and this just happened to, I get a lot of emails from people asking me for advice. And one gentleman said, hey, do I have to replace the timing belt on my car? And I said, well, how many miles? He says, 121,000, but it said recommended at 80. I'm like, ooh, that's a problem. And sure enough, a few weeks later, the timing belt failed, and it ended up costing him thousands of dollars rather than hundreds of dollars. So that owner's manual can really save you money.
It sounds like they're...
Coming up, how to balance your diet with good fats. A registered dietitian joins NTD in studio to rethink what we eat. Stay tuned.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS. The better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
A balanced diet, something we all strive for something to be a part of our daily lives. Yabo H.A., a registered dietitian, joined NTD's Stefania Cox in studio to talk about how to balance your diet with good fats.
We have a beautiful guest in studio with us, Yabo H.A. She's a registered dietitian, and we're going to talk all about healthy fats and how to enjoy your meals more. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are we going to cover today?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the most demonized macronutrient, fat. It is actually so important that we consume fat, but there are various types, and there's a lot of misconceptions about which ones you should be consuming. But it's not just about fats. You have to look at your diet in totality. So looking at the other macronutrients like carbs and protein is also really important. At the end of the day, we want to live and feel vibrant, and having these nutrients are very important.
I love the sound of that.
Yeah.
Let's get started. I know we've got a lot to go through, actually.
Yeah.
And you talked about what people are getting wrong, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of demonization out there. Perhaps
Yeah.
there's a bit of fear around what is actually really healthy.
Yeah.
Let's start with balance. You know, balance comes up a lot when people talk about healthy eating, healthy living. What are people getting wrong there?
Yeah, so the thing is, fats is not just one thing. You can almost think of fats as like 3 roommates. You have your saturated fat. That's the one that you kind of want to keep on the back burner. You don't want to kind of be in your house often. You have your unsaturated fats. Those are the ones you want around more often, invite them in. You have your trans fats. You probably want to evict them from your diet. They're not particularly helpful. So when we talk about balance, 20 to 35% of your diet should come from dietary fat, and you want most of that to be unsaturated and less than 10% to be that saturated fat.
Fascinating. Okay,
Yeah.
how do we make sure that we're going to work this into our diets in a daily sense, you know?
Yeah.
Parse this out for us.
Yeah, so that's where dosage comes in. So, you know, there's a lot of fats even in things like salad dressing. Now, if you're putting your lettuce into like a bath of dressing, that's a spa day for dressing, and that's too much. So you really want to be mindful that you're maybe dipping your lettuce into the dressing or doing less, or finding an alternative in the grocery store that has less fat.
Oh, I love hearing all about how we can adapt. And
Yeah.
there's so much to this. You've mentioned getting it done in terms of like the specific dosage, but what about frequency?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people love fats that are not out like dressing. There's also burgers. Now, if you're having a burger every single day, that's the frequency component. Once a week or a few times a week is fine. And there's so many grocery store alternatives to build a better burger.
Oh, I want to hear more about that. And I know we do have ideas about specific ingredients coming up, but when we're looking at our plate, okay, how are we going to tell that we're having a balanced diet when it comes to healthy fats?
Yeah, so really your diet is like a 3-legged stool. So you want to have everything kind of present, because if you just take one of the legs out, the stool falls apart. So the one thing I like to tell people is prioritize carbs. The thing that people get wrong, carbs isn't just bread, it's your fruits, it's your vegetables. So about half your plate with those things, because that fiber and those carbohydrates are going to keep you full. Then you have your fats. Fats are also really important for satiety and keeping you full. It's also good if you want to make sure your joints are well supported, also protect your organs. So you want about 20 to 35% of your diet. So a very small amount on your plate. Protein, about a quadrant. That is going to be super important. If you want to keep strong muscles, and there's other supportive things protein provides, you want to make sure you have that at least a fourth of your plate.
Does that proportion change whether it's meat-based or plant-based in terms of the protein?
Yes, it absolutely does. So the plant-based products usually don't have complete protein sources like a steak or a fish. So usually what you'll need to do is combine various types of non-animal-based meats or protein sources in order to get a complete protein combination.
And you know what? There's actually a few different schools of thought out there about combining or not combining all these macronutrients. Where do you stand on that?
Yes, I think about it this way. Everyone's an individual. Some people have certain health conditions where they're going to be looking at the carb quantity and frequency. Think insulin resistance. Then you have other people that are prone to not really keeping on a lot of weight. They're going to have to really emphasize having enough protein and carbs. So depending on your personal situation, you can work with a registered dietitian to figure out how much, how often, and exactly what you should be putting in your grocery cart.
Okay, we've got a really good bird's eye view here. I want to dig into some of the details. You've mentioned there are a few pretty good alternatives out there, the salad dressing, but let's look into the ingredients here. We've got avocado oil here. I personally have not actually tried this one yet, I don't think, but first of all, how does it taste? But also, how do you think it should be used?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I know it's not easy for me to come up here and say, ditch your burger, ditch your fries. So instead of cooking your fries in an olive oil, you can use an avocado oil. You can also just air fry as well, like do a potato wedge air fried style as well. So the whole point of this is to have the type of fat that's going to be supportive to your heart health and not counterproductive like you will with a vegetable oil. And it tastes pretty good, but again, if you're new to it, it may not be immediately your go-to, but try it out over time. It ends up kind of working to your liking. And then you've got your sweet potatoes, which I love as an alternative. So if you don't want to do your standard potato, you can switch out your fries for sweet potato fries, which is a great option as well.
You with the air fryer, perhaps?
Yes, yes, air fry.
I'm a big one for yogurts and Greek yogurt in particular. What have you got for us on that?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I know a lot of people love their aiolis and they love their dressings. And so you can actually use Greek yogurt as a salad dressing base or for your aioli. So that way you're reducing the fat. You're also getting a great source of protein. And typically speaking, it's a great substitute. You can barely tell the difference.
Amazing. I want to try some of these. And you know what? I actually brought something for you to try.
Okay.
Okay, I made this last night.
Sure.
I want to hear your advice, and I want to tell you what's in it. You can tell me if this is probably too much fat for one meal, but come on over.
Sure.
So you can have here. Oh, Carrie, come join us.
I want to try
some of this too. Yes, welcome. Welcome back. And these are bliss balls.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, have a look. Have a look. If
yeah.
you want to come closer, you're welcome. I want to point out what I did because I was getting a bit excited about this segment today, and I made a variety of flavors. So this one is honey flavored. That's got beetroot powder in it. This has moringa, which you probably know about. Yeah, and this one's cocoa.
Nice.
So I expect you to try all of them. No, but not really because it's made mostly with coconut oil. But I did put some French butter in there.
Okay,
just
awesome.
to give it an extra
Let's
kick.
do it.
Awesome.
Where should I start? It's such a colorful palette
I know.
here.
Okay, let's see. Yes, let's have some tissues.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's almost like a donut replacement. I need a nice cup of joe to sort of, I don't know, from a dietary perspective, is it bad for me to mix the coffee with the fats?
Not at all. I mean, it's all about having balance that works for you. So if you're a person who wants tea or coffee, go for it.
Fantastic.
Nice. Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun, and I wish, you know what? Let's stick around and finish this off.
Sounds good.
But I want to invite some of our crew on, if you can, come on over.
Come on and enjoy some bliss balls. Truly are quite blissful. Yeah,
Are they?
Yeah. If you're telling me they're healthy and they taste this good, then I think we're onto something here.
And they fill you up, right?
Amazing.
Oh, I put walnut in there too. Here, have another one.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Okay, who have we got? Anyone want some? Okay, no. We've got much more coming. Stay tuned. As you know, plenty more news coming up. Meantime, if you have a bliss ball or some kind of fat-based snack at your disposal, join us for a few more moments of pure bliss.
We got to wrap it up here. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. I'm Carrie Dunst. And Stephanie Cox with a mouthful of bliss balls. That's right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
Steph, where is my bliss ball? I was not told about this event. Anyways, that's all for today's news. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.